Greetings all, I am back in Detroit and with me again is Lieutenant Colonel George, the project manager for the MPF. And of course part of your job as project managing, I presume, was determining which vehicle will be selected and which vehicle was not.
So we have a committee that does that, but we oversaw the development for both programs that the committee reviewed.
Okay, so we know the GDLS was selected and the one which is not selected is the BAE, which looks a lot like the old M8 armored gun system, which looks a lot like the CCVL that I'm a lot more familiar with. Yay?
So the M8 is the basis for this vehicle. So they started with the M8 and they looked at how they could modernize it into the future.
So BAE don't call this an M8A1 or anything?
They do not.
Okay. So the set of requirements was the same as the set of requirements for the GDLS MPF. They just said about this a different way. So what we're going to do is walk around the BAE vehicle a little bit and see what sort of different answers they came up with to meet the same problem set. And I'm looking at it immediately, I see, well, firstly, we have an engine at the back because the driver is front and center. And second, we have rubber band tracks.
Rubber band tracks. Saucy makes rubber band tracks for this vehicle.
And one of the advantages, obviously, is it is quieter and presumably lighter.
Significantly lighter.
Disadvantage, harder to repair.
Disadvantage for a rubber band track can be the fact that it's difficult to get out, right? You also carry it as it's configured right now as a single piece of track.
Yeah. So, we hit a mine or something like that, you can't just replace a link, you got to replace the entire thing.
It is a handoff, right? It's a trade-off.
Gotcha. All right, so again we have looks like a camera at the front for night vision. Headlights, I presume it's your DVE FLIR system like the others. Canon, do we have, is this an M68 or the same M35?
So this is the same M35 Canon. Now again, they take a slightly different approach to the XM35. You'll see no bore evacuator, etc. But it is still the same base XM35 Canon.
All right, so the gun you say is the same M35 as on MPF because the Army deals with guns?
Correct.
Okay, except no bore evacuator.
No bore evacuator. This vehicle actually uses a bore evacuation fan, which essentially achieves the same goal through blowing out the bore.
Not many things do, but a few do. Leclerc does, for example. A stormtrooper helmet, for some reason.
Because soldiers do what soldiers will do.
and they named their tank Britain.
That's correct.
Did you want to have it? No name on the other one. Okay. So if the power pack is at the back, what do you have under here?
So you've got some additional options with the pack in the back. So ammo storage, additional ammo storage on your side of the vehicle, as well as some additional fuel capacity on this side of the vehicle.
We'll talk about the ammo storage a little bit later. This is an auto-loading system still.
It is an auto-loading system. Three-man crew, or three-person crew with an auto-loading system.
Was the autoloader a determining factor in the requirements, or did you didn't care?
Source selection looked across, source selection on any platform that we field or piece of equipment looks across the requirement, the system, the maturity, the cost, the schedule. So really is a holistic look between different platforms in this case.
Right, so there's no advantage, no disadvantage to the autoloader other than the fact that maybe you need one man less versus
Yeah, and the source selection committee took all of that into consideration as it made the final determination.
All right, so the hatch looks like it swings upwards.
It does. That is correct.
Do you need to spin the turret to get out?
No, you can crawl in. So you'll see that here in a minute. You can crawl in. It's a tight fit, but you can crawl in.
Okay, I'm looking at. Damn, this is sharp.
Significant wire cutter.
I have to zoom in on this, but this is a wire cutter that you do not want to get your fingers caught. I haven't seen one of those before. All right, so another wire cutter up top. Same smoke grenade launchers as on the GDLS system, it looks like.
It's the M257, right? Fires the M19 smoke grenade.
Gotcha. And what that? It almost looks like a pintle or something, just behind this. No, it can't be. There's nothing there for it.
Where are we looking at?
I'm just looking what's behind this wire cutter back here.
Antenna mounts.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, tell you what, let's go around to the side then, since I'm pointing that way. Okay, so the side of the BAE, how did you just distinguish them? Did you just say the BAE, the GDLS, or did you give them different names?
So during the competition, we had set up two teams. There was a gold team that was the GDLS team and a black team that was a BAE team. At this point where we're at in the program, MPF is established through as a GDLS vehicle, and this is a BAE prototype.
But when you were actually in the testing, you just said, "Oh, the gold vehicle, the black vehicle." You didn't try to come up with some long name.
Exactly
the
correct.
BAE MGF prototype.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we've gotten past here. Doghouse looks like a typical doghouse, I guess. Pintle for the caliber 50, it looks like.
So pintle mount, so accepts multiple different weapon systems.
Does it rotate around?
It does rotate around.
Okay. That looks sharp. It's like bore brushes almost.
I believe that is exactly bore brushes.
I haven't been divorced from armor so much. All right, so let's have a look at the wheels down here. So we're looking down, they almost look like M113 wheels.
So yeah, the M113 wheel, that is a common wheel.
So it would be light, fluid checks, okay. And the drive is presumably at the back.
It is in the rear with track tension in the front.
Okay, again, thick enough armor plates with mounting points for ERA. Coaxial?
Coaxial ejection.
So the coax is with the crew in the right-hand side of the gun.
Yes.
Okay. So this is armored board, but spent shape casings, or at least link, come out the right-hand side. So, well, we'll have a look inside maybe if it's a right or a left feed gun. I'm kind of curious now. Stuff.
Stuff. You can't hold enough stuff.
So it's the same as so Pioneer tools and all that sort of kit will go here then?
BII, as well as you're going to mount up rucksacks here, right? That this is, it's also crew storage wherever it can be, whatever you can strap onto the side. But yeah, this is BII mounts, etc.
So the sprocket wheel, it reminds me a lot of the Susie tracks that the Canadians are using actually.
So similar system, very similar system.
So the way that the sprocket intersects here, it's not like teeth in the traditional method. It's almost like, I don't know how you say it, just meshes with enlarged link portions, for lack of a better term. But we do have big center guides, so I'm presuming that this thing didn't throw track any more than anything else did.
So band track is certainly different, right? You have to pay attention to make sure that you don't walk the track off. But no, this did not throw track any more than you'd see normally in a vehicle.
In this testing program, how badly did you get these things stuck?
So I will say I was not there for the testing program, but we gave the same amount of prototypes from both vendors to soldiers independently, and we said, go do your thing, right? And gave them the opportunity to put it through
5 seconds later.
all the rigors that you would expect a soldier to put the vehicles through, we let them operate it as soldiers would operate it. So they drove it through the mud, they put it in the woods, they did all of the things that you would expect, and probably a lot of the things that you've seen with these vehicles.
And they were basically 19 kilos?
And these are all 19. They were crewed by 19 kilos, and will continue to be crewed by 19 kilos for the MPF program.
Will they have an ASI then? Or?
So that's unknown right now. They're still determining what that training is going to look like for them.
But it'll be at Benning, obviously.
We would anticipate it at Benning. Does that look like an ASI? Is that something that all crews go through? That is still, as we understand the intricacies of the vehicle, we understand how do we make armor crewmen most successful. Those are things that the team at Benning is still diligently working through.
All right, let's move on. All right, so back of the vehicle, infantry phone is on the right-hand side. There's a review camera here, or a situational awareness camera he's calling it, which I guess could be the same thing. Now, the CCVL, one of the things that they had done was they tried to use as much off-the-shelf components. So in the back of the CCVL was basically a Hammett engine, which could roll out. Did they have a Hammett engine in this, or have they gone somewhere else?
This is not a Hammett engine. So this is a MTU 550 horsepower engine. It's been mated with Allison, the 3040 MX. They do still have that rollout system. We can show you that here in just a second. We've already got it prepped to show you where your back deck or door would come down and you'd slide the pack out directly and can do a vast majority of your maintenance right here with it on the platform still.
Well, that's pretty handy. Oh, tow cables?
Tow cables, specifically tow cables, right?
It's the back of a vehicle, I guess. So with the autoloader, oh, I see, ammunition injection port.
That's injection right there, exactly.
So unlike the MPF where you got to lump them out yourself through the hatch, automatically does it for you. Okay, stowage on the left, a box of something. Taillights, okay. Convoy marker. Oh, you got real ones. This one, they're not painted on. Yeah, I mean, it's the back end of an armored vehicle. I mean, you've seen enough of them at this point. Okay, so we're looking at a very asymmetric turret. So on the other side, it was nice and high, but here we have a slant that comes down, and this is because of the configuration inside, which is autoloader left, crew on the right, correct?
As I'm facing autoloader on the left, facing tube front, autoloader on the left, crew on the right.
Bit different to any other autoloader system that's been fielded. More stowage, I presume?
Oh, can't have enough stowage.
Let me guess, another camera?
Another camera, correct.
A pretty good field of vision, actually. So how does the driver, I presume it's the driver that's looking at these cameras, does he have like a wraparound screen as well, or does he have to select camera A, camera B?
So there's a device that he slips in. That device then gives him situational awareness for all of his cameras in a smaller view and the ability to look deeper into any single view.
No movement yet to virtual reality headsets that you can look at?
Not yet.
But you're working on it.
But we are open to all things in the future.
All right. Well, looks more like the tow bars.
That's the tow bar. There, you got it.
And
that's the end of the tow bar.
Oh, okay. Well, I wish I could talk about something else interesting, but I mean, it's a turret. What goes on here?
Additional antenna mount.
Oh, okay. So we got antenna mount there, antenna mount there, antenna mount there. Then the crosswind sensor, which has been stowed forwards. Did you guys come up with nicknames for these vehicles?
I call this one BAE's prototype.
The diplomatic answer. Obviously, they had other names. Okay, so I'm just wondering. So I'm using, again, thinking M1. There's going to be like an NBC system here on the left. It's all under armor now, I presume. I see a big hatch right behind you on the right. Does this have the same level of crew egress capabilities?
So crew egress was something across both vehicles that were looked at. Approached it differently on the vehicles, and some of this was done in essentially how they set up the individual planes for egress. So there is still egress taken into account in the development of the vehicle.
But there's no big driver's door. So does he have a hatch at the bottom?
You do not have a hatch at the bottom. There isn't a secondary hatch in the same way that you see on the other vehicle.
And if you spin the turret around, can you get out through the turret?
You still can get out through the turret.
Just looking at the big hatch behind you there. Is that something you can...
So that maintenance hatch. So this gives you access to some of the maintenance functions and fans in the back of the vehicle.
Without even having to pull out the main pack.
Correct.
Okay, so I look at a drop back like this. My first thought is this goes back to the M18 gun motor carriage, then the M24, and then we stopped doing it for a while. We're back, at least in concept. So how, obviously you'd have to disconnect the final drives from the system. Do you also have to disconnect all the fuel lines and everything else?
You do, and most of those disconnects sit over here on my side of the vehicle. So you could disconnect it. It really is a well thought out system. You disconnect the final drives, and then you can actually use an impact wrench. So an impact wrench would pull back the pack itself, and the connection on the impact wrench is right down here, and it would the pack cranks out with you.
Pushed out.
And you can see all the advantages to that, right? I'm sure you've spent plenty of time with T-bars, right?
Will it work as a ground hop kit as well? I mean, can you actually run it on the back?
You can. You can ground hop it right here on the back of the vehicle.
It's very handy. And then, of course, if you have to change it, it's easy enough just to lift out. Does the transmission do the same thing? Well, no, of course, it's all part of the pack here.
Exactly. It's all inside the pack, so you can have access to it.
Going back to World War II. And the M24, which it did at both ends. That's kind of neat. So the MTU, what else is this particular MTU found in?
I don't believe there are any current U.S. vehicles that field the MTU. I think, and MTU, both of the prototypes used an MTU engine, although under a different configuration. I believe that we will be the first with an MTU pack in a production vehicle, although somebody's going to tell me I'm wrong on that.
Say wrong, but yeah, it doesn't strike me. I can't think of anything else that actually has this engine. But I guess again it comes down just to the designers saying this is the engine that fits. I find it interesting that of all the engines, both the competitors picked MTU and not one of the, let's say, the Cummins new ones that's coming out. But I'm sure they had their reasons. So when it does come to commonality then, what are the commonalities for the parts supply in this particular vehicle?
So commonalities with this vehicle as well as with some of the other vehicles. So you do have some common parts. It's less on this vehicle. You'll find less common parts because this is really a different approach. We haven't seen band track proliferated on a lot of the vehicles that we use across the fleet. You'll see, and we've already talked about common road wheels. Obviously not a common sprocket. A lot of the internal LRUs, the line replaceable units, are going to be common, but you won't see from an external frame perspective, you don't see as much common. And really,
the torsion bars, road wheel arms, things like that might break. Are they Bradley related? Or?
So uncommon torsion bar. I'm looking at the smarter people than me. It is common? Okay, see, this is why they're here, right? So common with the Bradley then. Bradley or AMP? Okay, so common torsion bar. There you go. Again, that's why they are here. Common torsion bar, same torsion bar, general torsion bar configuration that you would see on the Bradley and AMP for sure. But a lot of the automotive is going to be independent. All of the, as you look at really what the requirement was for this vehicle, it's something that it's a space that we have not seen on the battlefield in a while, both in weight class and in capability. So I think both of the vendors certainly took a look at how they could maximize effectiveness. And commonality is certainly something we're always looking at, but it's a trade-off, right? Everything we look at is a trade-off.
Bringing in 551s back from Fort Irwin or anything?
Not yet. Now there aren't too many running around.
This isn't a winch. This just holds. Is there a winch? How do you actually?
So this
hydraulic ramp.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. This isn't a winch. You just have secondary safety to ensure you don't end up with a free fall door.
That's fair. I'm just saying, so you can sleep one or two people there. I don't think you can sleep anybody on the roof. There's more sleeping space on the GDLS MPF.
Nick, soldiers will always find a way.
I'm a 6'5" soldier. I need a fair bit of sleeping space. No matter how well I can cram into things. Where's the fuel tank then? So the radiator looks like there's a single radiator fan on the left-hand side.
Correct. So, yeah, we have a multiple fuel tank system. So single fuel tank on the left-hand side, two fuel tanks over on the right-hand side, and then a auxiliary in front.
And was this designed to be multi-fuel or just JP8 diesel?
So it's a diesel engine, right? So it'll run anything that a diesel engine will run, but it is generally we would expect JP8. So one of the interesting things about this vehicle, about both vehicles, but this vehicle specifically is just it really is a different approach than we have seen, right? It really is something that looks different than what we fielded in the Army for a while.
I kind of have to feel a little bit bad for BAE. I mean, they've been pushing this vehicle now for 40 years. And nobody's ever been able to tell me it's a bad vehicle. It just never gets selected.
So the source selection committee, anytime, has to look holistically, and that's what they did. They looked holistically based off the requirements, maturity, based off of schedule, and made the final determination.
So the particularly astute and observant of you may notice now, all of a sudden I have changed my shirt, background, and in fact it's an entirely new vehicle. The reason is there was an issue with the recording of the interior up in Detroit. So I have had to reshoot this bit here in Fort Benning, soon to be renamed. By the time this gets released, I think it'll be Fort Moore. However, there is an advantage that I actually have a little bit more time. It's starting to get a bit pressed because I was spending a little bit too much time on the MPF and MV. And so I've had the opportunity to do a little bit more investigating and seeing what's what with this vehicle. So tune back in for part 2 and we'll take you around the inside of the MPF.
You do know I put a blooper reel at the end of most of the videos, right?
Good.